Can you introduce yourselves briefly? University, teaching, and research fields? Maybe.
I'm Meena Galliara. I teach at the Narsee Monjee Institute of Management Studies, and my research area is corporate social responsibility, governance, and social entrepreneurship.
Okay. Fine.
Well, I'm Isabel Guimarães, and I'm a lecturer in the business school, the School of Economics and Business in Porto, the Catholic University of Portugal, and I teach economic sociology. So my research interests are labour markets, and more recently the confront of economic rationality with morality. So.
Okay. Fine. And you, Timo Lampikoski?
I'm from Haaga-Helia, University of Applied Sciences. I'm a career counselor at Haaga-Helia, and Haaga-Helia is located in Helsinki, Finland. It's our capital.
Okay. So the theme of 2013 International Academic Conference is New World, New Careers. Could you tell us why this theme is of interest to you and how you are addressing it in your lecture?
As a career counselor, I'm interested in new innovative ways of job searching, looking for a job. And my theme today in my tour presentation is Job Hunting 2.0, new online ways to find jobs and how to present yourself online and how to be active online. For example, you can create a digital portfolio, you can blog, you can create a Facebook page, to name a few examples.
New worlds, new careers. What does it mean for you? What and how your lecture is addressing it?
Mine. I'm not sure about the meaning of new worlds, because we live in a globalized world. There's not a lot to find out about the world. So I think it's a metaphor.
Yes, sure.
And I understood it as a metaphor. So what I tried to do is try to deconstruct some of the assumptions that we take when we talk about new worlds and new careers. So we need to know what do we mean by those expressions, and when we talk about career and changes and so forth, we need to know at the background. So in where are these ideas grounded on, what kind of research supports some of the assumptions that lie beneath this. So that's pretty much what I address in my presentation. And then lately, by the end of the presentation, I start talking about employability because it's related. And I introduce the program existing in my university to promote the employability of students. So that's pretty much it.
When I'm looking at this whole concept of new world, I'm looking at various development statistics which talk about 50% of the world today is facing poverty. And should we continue with this new world, which is putting so much of pressure on each one of us? And in this context, should we convert this tragedy into a business opportunity? So looking at the bottom of the pyramid, what are the issues in the areas of health, in the areas of education, in the areas of, say, homelessness, the social issues which are there. So can there be certain products and services which can create career opportunities for each one of us, whether we live in a developed world or developing world or in the least developed world. So I'm personally looking at new world in terms of it's in our hands to create a new world or to destroy the new world. So I'm looking at that.
Okay. As concerned as online recruitment, actually, it appears that online recruitment is growing. So, how to take advantage of that trend?
Yeah, I
This is a fun question.
partially answered that question, but and obviously I discuss it more in my live presentation here. But the basic thing is to network and sort of mix the traditional way of networking and this new world of networking online. And the other thing is that you can be active. And the third thing is that I see that there are opportunities, equal opportunities online. Basically everybody can or could blog or create a website or a Facebook page, and it doesn't necessarily cost anything to create a page or be active online.
But concerning Facebook, for instance, or LinkedIn, which advices you may give to our students, or advices
yes.
something to not to do?
My advice is to try something new. Try one strategy. In my presentation, I present several ways to be active online or network online, and my final advice was in my presentation is that try something new.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine, thank you. And what would you recommend us as students and future business graduates in order to boost our employability, and what are the perspectives in terms of career development according to you?
To boost your employability,
Yes.
that depends on what kind of skills the employers here are looking for, because there's no universal solution, although the textbooks sometimes imply that, but it's not true. And even in the country I live in, the requirements of employers is changing over time. So now they're very much into communication skills. They want people that write well and speak well and are fluent, don't make mistakes, spelling mistakes and stuff like that. But in the past, they were more looking for people who would be technically and scientifically competent. Now it's indifferent because they leave the university, it's more or less the same. So they are looking at more personal features of the individuals. And that's where the problem begins, because that's where it opens room for discrimination. And that's where the social background of students is starting to count. And that's where the problems start to emerge, and it's something that you cannot sort out at university level. So if you don't like to read and if you cannot write well, it's very difficult to overcome those handicaps unless you commit yourself to doing it. So there's the first way to improve your employability is try to understand how your employers reason, what do they want, and then try to match it as much as you can. I don't think there's a universal solution for that.
And from a job seeking view, you should always think that how can I add value to this company, and tailor your cover letter and resume to suit the needs of that particular company.
But then even that doesn't work all the time. We talk with the recruiters who will value originality and they like when the CV is different from all the others. And then we have others who will be very traditional, even in large companies, and they will refuse it. So they want everything very simple, minimalist and stuff. So
I agree.
It's difficult.
For me, the employability, I would agree with them that the student requires to have a social passion, that's fine, but he needs to have his readings well to understand the global impact. So if I'm talking about hunger in Asia, I also need to know hunger in Africa, hunger in Europe, hunger in various places, because at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur. The word social comes only because we all live in a larger society and these are going to impact. So I need to know who is the investor who is going to invest in my passion, and he's an investor. He's not on charity. He wants his money back. So he has to have a business logic, and that comes only with thorough reading of different parts of the world. What are the entrepreneurial activities going on over there? What they are answering into it. So the business logic and social passion has to be balanced. That's the first thing. To improve employability, there are cases where he could look at sustainability departments or CSR departments of companies. Now, people who invest in CSR or sustainability is out of the shareholders' money. The shareholder has invested money in the company to get back the returns. So he has to know his return on investment along with social returns on investment. So if this logic is not clear to him or to the larger society of students, then it wouldn't work. The employability will not be there. If it is purely social passion, then it would go as a social worker and not as a social entrepreneur. So the student requires to know that just by understanding the tragedies of the world, he doesn't become a social entrepreneur. He requires to have solution, innovation and continuous innovation, because that's what makes an entrepreneur stand apart.
Yeah, okay. And do you think our career are born to be international? And to what extent, and what would be the key success factors according to you to be to work international?
I would encourage to take the chance of student exchange for one practical thing. Always, if there's a chance, you could and you should take that opportunity.
Yes, of course, and you need to be open to other cultures, to the difference. The bottom line is that at the end of the day you need to be open to the difference, because if you are sort of arrogant, if you stick too close to your own cultural values, then you're doomed. You won't be suitable for an international career. So. But I don't think that it's a must, because if everybody's going for an international career, then who works in the country, right? Who stays behind? So,
yeah, but I'm talking about
but it's
a relatively short period of
yeah.
time. But they made studies in Finland at least, and the employers they prefer students or alumni who has this kind of international experience.
Yes, Erasmus.
Yeah, either by studying or even working.
Yeah.
This placement works.
That's not clear in Portugal, though, because some students who ended up working abroad. For example, I've interviewed one who graduated in economics and went to Finland, went to work to Nokia, ended up in Japan, went back to Portugal and could not find a job.
In Portugal?
Yes. He only found a job when he removed from his CV all the information about the international experience.
Really?
Yeah, employers would say that would expect him to have great expectations, and so and that happened to an expert in IT who had worked in Silicon Valley. When he returned, he couldn't find a job until he removed the information from the CV. So it depends on companies and recruiters. So
for your international career, is it enough? Is it the only key success to work internationally, to study abroad? Is it enough?
If you look at social entrepreneurs, they are mainly their work is at a local level, but they need to connect at the global level, because there are networks which are operating at the global level. So if we are shifting from aid to trade, that trade is the only way of helping people to come out of poverty, those decisions are taken at an international level, but the impacts are happening at the local level. So if I were to give an example, like one of my students designed an enterprise on pedal pushing as the first choice of transport. So he had to Skype with entrepreneurs in France or in China or in Japan, where cycling is used the entire thing, So, but the work was happening at the local level. So he's at both the levels which is there. If you're working in a sustainability department of a multinational company, then definitely there is an international theme which goes around, and you have to align your local interventions according to international theme. So he may be, transferred from India to Brazil, and he has to continue that work over there. So for me, an international career for a student would mean being continuously in touch with what is happening at the global level through information technology. He has to be glued to it. So he need not be in another country. He can be very much in his own country, but be connected with the other country. He has to have those global values, as she talked about respecting human rights, about transparency, about accountability, about environment. Now these are the global values which he has to firmly believe in. So the entire work of a social entrepreneur is shifting from capitalism to welfare capitalism. So in that aspect, he has to be in touch with the international.
So to be open-minded, as you said.
And you can always start an international career by looking for a work placement or your first job in an international company in your own country, and build up on that.
Okay. And just to finish, we are experiencing an economic turmoil, especially in so-called developed countries, and this has a huge impact on the way careers are managed. So do you think this has a greater impact on new generations? And do you think we'll have to manage our careers differently?
Well, I come from one of those countries. One country that considered to be developed, and now we don't know. So what I can say about that is that we don't. Well, this is a very bold assertion, what I'm going to say, and probably is not really true, but it will be close to the truth. We probably don't have a labor market for university graduates in my country right now. This doesn't mean that some graduates won't find jobs, and we hope that those from my university will.
Of course.
It helps, but it means really that there is a huge trend of migration of the highly qualified individuals in youngsters, especially in my country right now, because they cannot find jobs in Portugal. They could not find jobs already. I think the problem comes from 1995 onwards, because that's when we reached the peak of high demand for higher education, but now it's virtually impossible. And this could be anticipated because the structure of our economic field didn't change, and we have circa 2.8% of medium-sized and large firms. So that's the market for a university graduate. You cannot employ many university graduates in small and micro-sized firms.
And so, thanks to
the answer is immigration.
Yes, to immigrate. But where do students of Porto immigrate nowadays?
Nowadays, so I would tell you that the Portuguese are at this point the first community of migrants in Brazil.
Okay.
So they look.
Yeah.
But the Portuguese are at the top, and the second is surprisingly the Americans. That was not expected, but it's the Portuguese, and they look in the first place for countries with similarities, language similarities. So it will be Brazil as it is Mozambique and Angola, because especially Angola, from
Because
the
of the
economic point
language
of view,
too.
it's the language and the money and the business, the possibilities that you have there. But then Brazil, many of them, of course, will seek the European Union, and it depends on the fields of studies. So engineering, for example, they're very successful because Germany is recruiting and Norway is recruiting Portuguese engineers, and also the UK, the medical professions as well. So it's quite easy. What I think that will change is that trend that was created partly by career counselors that were telling university graduates or young executives that careers are no longer steady, that they need to change, that staying in the same company for 3 years or so will decrease their market value and so forth. And now I think that you'll see increasingly those who have their employment in large companies, they will want to stay. They will stay put because there's no labor market, there's nowhere to go. Yeah, so it's very rigid.
And in Denmark,
Still, I'm optimistic that the newer generation, the new generations, they will manage.
Yeah,
I'm afraid the older generations.
If the older generation doesn't destroy everything around them before.
But is it the same point of view in your country, in your
At present,
university?
there are jobs in Finland.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, yes, actually, and that the employment rate of our graduates, it's pretty good, dependent on the fluctuation of the general market.
And maybe changes in Finland, maybe in the technology, in the internet.
Hope so, yeah.
And so,
hope so.
maybe it may create some careers and
One
and
thing
have an
is sure
impact.
that us Finns or Finland, we have to find new niches, new fields of excellence to succeed in the future. Yes, that is for sure. Is it through 2 or 3 new Nokia, like huge companies, or hundreds and hundreds of startups? We don't know. We'll see. We'll see, but we'll need new expertise.
And in India,
We have a lot of these openings coming in the sustainability area and CSR, because we have from this year corporate social responsibility is being made mandatory. So a lot of openings are there. That means business schools will have to offer more courses in the areas of sustainability. It will no longer be an optional requirement. And unfortunately, till business schools do not recognize this, there will be always a gap which is there. So currently, if you look at Asia, Singapore, Hong Kong, India, China, they are relatively doing better. So we have, there is a continental migration which happens, which earlier we would see in the 70s and 60s, migration would be to European countries. Now then came the period where there would be continental migration, and now it is the reverse migration which is taking place. So we do find, but we have to, I think it is a very natural phenomena that one type of structure will demolish itself and a new structure opens. And as she said, it's the older generation which will have to realign itself and see, to cope with the changes. Yeah. And these are niche areas. There are jobs, but there are no dream jobs. Okay, as a student would aspire to work in dream companies. So they may not have those jobs, but there are other jobs which are available. So the business school, the counselors and everybody in the process will have to realign themselves and see whether they create students in order to fit to those careers, and whether the students have those abilities, to, like in my sector for social entrepreneurs, I know social investors require business analyst. Sustainability indices companies like FTSE4 index or Dow Jones Sustainability Index, they require people. But unfortunately, MBA schools do not create students who can work for them. So the whole green finance which is coming up, or the area of microfinance which is coming up. Now these are the areas where jobs are available. So if students are geared to see into these areas, are also as a very fortunate career making areas, and there may be not of big money, but reasonably good money. With a lot of satisfaction. I think if we help them to change their thinking, they would be, accommodated. And as he said, that young people will adjust faster, the survival.
In Finland, we are going to need thousands of new startups in the next 10 or 15 years. Thousands. New small companies. That could be one solution.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.